Today, we're going to be talking all about tech budgeting and what that means and what some of the costs are in a tech budget. Again, like I said, my name is Michael Thomas. I'm the CEO and founder of Amshot, and we're an MSP in Oklahoma City. So we help small businesses in our market make valuable decisions with their technology. That's an important word in our mission statement. So you can see our mission statement there on the left. We help businesses make valuable decisions. We do that by having an environment where our team can grow and thrive. And we've been hard at it for over 13 years. We've made a big impact in our community and with our clients, and we're looking to grow and do more. I'm, of course, joined by Drew. This is your second time on the IT Factor. Always good to have you. Your office is just right across the light mode room. So I'm waving at Drew right now. And so, Drew, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my second time, I guess, I don't know if that still makes me a rookie. Maybe I'm in my second year. I'm not really sure how that goes, but uh, you know, technical debt is something that I've explored for years. I got to start doing it at the enterprise level, helping a oil and gas company whittle down from 1,100 applications down to 700. And those times we were really trying to figure out what technical debt truly was. It was around that when SaaS apps started coming online, and you had to start parking perpetual applications, these applications people have had for years, and MNS and maintenance and support, all these other things, and it really started changing the game. So companies got proactive. So I'm excited to go down this path with you today, Michael, and hopefully we share just a gem of information for someone out there that gets something out of it that's tangible.
It's interesting because you can spend in IT and you can spend a lot. And you can spend too much. You can make too many apps, and you can overcommit. And so I think that's a little bit of what you were talking about just now. And so it's important on both ends. Don't view it as a sunk cost, but also, it's not just a pour gasoline on the fire to solve problems situation. So here's our agenda. By the end of the session, we want people to understand how to spot where your tech budget falls short and why shifting from spending or being as a sunk cost to investing matters, and how to watch out for technical debt. So how to watch out for things that maybe they're the way you've always done it or the way they've always been done, but they're really an anchor holding you back. Those things can eat at your budget. And we want to talk about what smart businesses are doing. I know one of the analogies I'm going to use is I'm going to talk about eating your vegetables as a business, right? Eating your veggies, getting healthy, making your environment something that's AI ready. In the end, we want you to know exactly what to expect from a strategic IT partner and how to make every penny count. Here are some of the biggest failures that we see, and why most small businesses especially really do fail to get value out of their spend. And it really does. It makes spending on IT or technology painful. There's a lot of things that a business can buy that have, a little bit of a vanity or a little bit of a ego boost to it. A lot of what your IT spending is going to be is really health conscious decisions that are going to get you ROI over time, but they don't have a big ego boost, when you do them. So definitely reactive spending. You and I see this a lot, and we're always talking to clients about how to move forward with this.
We do. It makes me think about, for all those that grew up in the 70s and 80s, you probably had technical debt in your house. It was that big cabinet television that you had on the living room, and it was too big to move once it went out. So you went and got a new television. You put it right on top of that old one.
Right.
And you're like, hey, this is great because now we don't have to look down as much. We can look straight at it. And that's really what we're dealing with. It's that lack of desire or lack of planning and roadmap to clean out your closet, before you put the new clothes in it. And that, in the simplest terms, that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Yeah. Same on kind of short-term thinking. When you're in a small or a medium business, it's really easy to be, focused on what's right in front of you, on, I need this to do something different. And you might build a path and you might spend and spend on building this path, and that path really isn't going anywhere. You need to do something, you need to update your server database operating system, you need to keep doing these little fixes, and unfortunately, you're just paying bad after bad after bad. If you spend a little time and come up with a plan, where you can say, hey, let's get off this system, let's move, let's invest in something, 6 months, and you are in the clear. You're in a modern environment, you're making, drastic business decisions. So that short term really, really bites people a lot as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Michael. I'll move on to siloed decision making. We see this a lot in the medical community. A lot of times you'll have doctors making decisions on these big, machines that they need a ton of IT support, or need someone to fly in from some other country to do the back end support. And a lot of that stuff's not considered, when they make these large purchases for some of this stuff. You also see it in other industries, where you have, maybe accounting group making decisions for a new accounting platform that's going to disrupt the supply chain because of, the difficulties with having unique identifiers or memorizing things like T codes and different things like that. So it's important that you have the key decision makers in the room, and in our case, that means a fractional CIO to have sitting with you as you make these decisions and you're vetting these vendors.
Yeah. Yeah. And then next, the set it and forget it mentality. It has been a long time since the IT department's job was to build something, make it rock solid, and walk away. That went away over a decade ago. And so if that's the feel of your IT environment, if when you call to get support, or you call your IT environment or your IT provider and they aren't excited to talk to you about what is coming up and what they could change and how they are making things could make things better, they're a bad fit, because they are over 10 years in the rearview mirror with their idea, and how IT should help you. And so definitely a huge red flag for me is that one.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's good stuff, Michael. Underinvestment strategy is another one. I'll tell you, that's that old theory of trusting your gut. Think about how successful you'd be if you trusted your gut in the middle of, trying to get a nutrition plan for yourself. You're like, you know what, I'm just going to go with what my body feels like it needs. I think this is going to prepare me properly. It's not going to work. Your gut's going to tell you McDonald's is going to be my best friend right now. The reality of it is strategy plays a key role in being proactive and predictive of what your needs are going to be, and not taking the time to invest in said strategy is most often what we see. And I think Michael tend to agree with me. Most often what we see is the most easy recognizable thing that's going to make it a difficult situation in the future.
and all those barriers, they come from bad habits. They come from old habits, and you really do. It's hard to break an old habit. So if you fall into any of those categories, or your provider does, these are habits you've got to get out of. You've got to learn to think of a new way to think about spending and aligning IT with your business goals, your quarterly goals, your annual goals, your 3-year goals. IT should be right there with you. Excuse me. Move on to the next slide. We've got a great poll for this one. So, Becca, go ahead and throw that poll up. We want to see how people view their IT spend currently in your environment. Is it a sunk cost that you need to keep to a minimum, or is it money that you're investing into your company that you should be able to get an ROI?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a line item. It's got to be an investment. It's got to be something you get ahead of. We see a lot of this, when it comes to onboarding, new employees. It's very important that you anticipate the financial footprint of onboarding a new employee, to include the endpoint device, and assign value with that, and make it part of your growth strategy, to include networking and all the other easy buttons. But really, this is about platform and application development. Depending on industry, there's a lot of thought that goes into this, and make sure that you're investing so you can get that ROI, and get sense out of the money you're spending.
Yeah, and it is interesting, in different industries, there are numbers that people talk about. And Should you be spending 11% of your revenue? Should you be spending 4%? Are you in a growth mode? Are you in a competitive market where you need to differentiate? Generally, those drive up that percent of your revenue that you need to be spending on technology. And it's a little bit of um, a differentiator, because technology isn't just computers and servers. Technology is anything that helps you do your work more efficiently. So it might be a bigger, faster saw that cuts cabinet wood. It could be, a software package that has AI integrated so that you're going to reduce time. But in the end, technology is a lever, it's a fulcrum. And so if you're not viewing it that way, if you view IT costs as something that you need to minimize, just think that that's a business decision. And it looks like our population here in this webinar thinks that this is something that isn't going to move their businesses forward. And so it's up to people like us to help them to make that decision. And you and I are comfortable with clients that do not want to grow. They do not want to change their business. They don't want to use technology as a competing superpower. And so it is a business decision that people do have to make.
100% agree.
So unlocking value and getting stuck in reactive, mindsets, it's harder to make strategic growth driven investments. So one thing I like to talk about is your IT, your business processes, how you document, how you take care of these parts of your business. They are important to the value of your business, and they're also important to your resiliency. So it's not just doing things faster, but it's being prepared for economic uncertainty, market opportunity. So the more you are ready to adjust and pivot, and your business is ready to grow and scale, the easier it is for you to take advantage of opportunities that present themselves or to weather adverse situations. All right, so let's look at technical debt. And so I know that you and I really want to talk about this the most, especially how it relates to getting clients ready for AI adoption. So let's talk a little bit about how this is important.
Yeah, this is a big deal. I mean, AI is something that everybody's leaning into. I say everybody. We do sit down with CEOs that are a little bit more pragmatic about how they want to approach it. They do and have considered the risk associated with it, and that is to say, file structure. But that all aligns with technical debt. That performance we're talking about is, do you have the systems, the processes in place to run, Copilot or whatever AI you use. Maintenance costs, all those things are going to come into play. I mean, these days, we also have compliance to consider. It's a conversation we have often, but you have stuff you put a piggy bank in, you have stuff you put in a safety deposit box, and that's your data. And you have to differentiate what data needs to be in a safety deposit box, which is what is okay in a piggy bank. And when we're talking about AI, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about, let's make sure the safety deposit, all that data this is in a safety deposit box. This is who has keys to it. This is the number of the box. That is to say, the security risk associated with that box. There's labels on it, tags. That is what we're talking about. That's your security risks, slow innovation, all of that. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, so it is. These are kind of habits. These are habits that people have gotten into, and you have to be ready to think about your system performance and the culture of your company. You need to think about how safe is your environment, because your employees want to start using AI tools like Copilot and Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini. They probably already are, even though your IT department hasn't given you a tool or hasn't officially sanctioned one. So you are at risk now by not being prepared and not having this having these old habits, and it's tough. And, when you and I used to talk about technical debt, it was really like, do you have on-premise servers still? Do you have, legacy structure? And now technical debt is, how are your files and folders and documents and client information, and how is that organized in the cloud? And is it safe? Are you sure that you have your documents in the right place, and there's not social security numbers in there, and there's not, um, you know, credit card numbers stored somewhere that there shouldn't be? Because as you turn on these AI tools, as you start empowering these, cloud storage things like Dropbox and OneDrive, you have empowered your users to work how they want and start to create these risks that you have to be starting to budget for, and realizing that maybe it's not a dollar spend with an IT provider, but maybe it's a certain amount of hours per quarter that you are spending organizing data, getting all of your work product ready for newer systems, so that you can get into AI, so that you can start using new operation software. So, these things do seem like they are piling up, for sure. So some of the common causes, we've kind of gone through most of these, uh, and the middle one really is what's tough, for us working with our clients.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that documentation and training in those business processes in your organization, you are going to struggle. And so where business meets technology is changing.
Yeah, it's data is a commodity. I mean, that's the reality of the world we live in today. That documentation is so you can have repeatable processes. When you lose someone, let's say they move on to a different role in the company, or they move on to a different company altogether, to take that knowledge that they have, that legacy knowledge with them, is some of your debt or some of your data leaving with you. And it's data that they've got in that brain of theirs, data that they've compiled for years and years and years. And that's where this documentation and training comes in place. So you have repeatable processes, and that allows you to then automate said processes, which creates incredible efficiency in a company. Once you're automating processes, you're leveraging data, you're establishing data retention policies, you're aligning sensitivity labeling. Now you're on the cutting edge where you need to be to truly make well-informed decisions.
Right. We have a lot of clients that are coming and they want Copilot. They want this, they want it now. They're not worried about how to design it for success. And so you're kind of combining that first bullet and the last, right? You want the new toy, and you don't want to put in the effort to make it a system that is going to deliver the ROI that you want. And it's an interesting time for technology budgets. You and I, we've been talking about how we're going to be, rolling out AI to our clients and rolling out Copilot, and the costs associated with it, the risks. And people just assume, like they always do with what we do in IT, that it's just a button and you just push the button and it turns on. And, I wish it was like that. But believe me, there's thousands of buttons in the back end of your 365 tenants and your applications and all of these things. To get them to do what you want, it takes an investment and it takes strategy.
Yeah, Michael, when you say stuff like push the button, that really pushes my buttons.
Yeah.
Um, it's you're 100% dead on with that. It's tough, to explain that sometimes, about all the idiosyncrasies surrounding that stuff. And, especially, this really shows us a lot here on this next slide. Market changes. Michael, you were telling me today, you're setting up some agents right now. You've been working a lot in the Microsoft tenant, and just because of updates within the last 48 hours, that changed the trajectory and some of the traction you had in a direction. You had to pause and adjust and course correct. And you have to be able to course correct, and you have to be able to make those decisions quickly. And boy, does it really help to have the passenger car like somebody like Amshot to help make those decisions and be your navigator.
Yeah, I've never, in the 20 years that I've done IT for small and medium businesses, I've never seen technology move this quickly. I've never seen clients as interested in technology I've never seen it have impact and change as much as it's changing. You're dead right. So this week was Microsoft Ignite, which is Microsoft's annual conference where they release all their new stuff and talk about all their cool new toys. And they changed the entire back end of how agents are deployed and the security that we use to do it. And, to be on the cutting edge of this and to help small and medium businesses adapt and adopt this technology, it is a fast changing, but incredibly impactful, um, possibility. And, the ability to get your employees all to certain levels of proficiency in multiple areas quickly and to reduce the amount of noise and frustration that you're getting as a leader in the company. AI is here to achieve these things for you. And how this happens and what it takes, some clients, some companies are going to be more ready than others. So some are going to be able to adopt a copilot, adopt to the changes, and rapidly get going where they want to be because they are already on a good foundation. And so you for this slide, how digital drag slows you down right now, it really is in the AI space, in the AI adoption capabilities. So yeah, missed opportunities of AI.
Well, and I'll take it one step further. I've got some great examples here, Michael. Data centers. I do have know a lot about data centers. And for years and years, you're seeing people spin up data centers left and right. Well, now that AI is coming on board, they're finding out the data centers of yesterday aren't going to be able to support a lot of these new systems. They're going to need increased cooling capabilities. They're going to need increased capabilities when it comes to overall computing. So what's happening is these data centers are looking very, very quickly to fill these spaces, sell these racks, whatever they got to do to get data in there, old legacy data, cold data, archive data, whatever they can, so they can generate enough revenue to spin up these new data centers. The ones that are on the cutting edge of this are already in full stream of doing it. You can look out in West Texas, you can look out in East Texas, you can look at OpenAI is doing, and all these other ones. But this is what we're talking about. It's not waiting for that reaction. It's understanding what we live in today is changing, and what worked yesterday is not going to work tomorrow. So that's where you make the informed decisions. Missed opportunities can effectively impact your business to the point where you're looking at truly starting a new business or taking a new lateral.
Yeah. One of my peer MSP in Colorado Springs was just talking about how he has had a data center himself for his clients, and he's had it for, 10, 15 years, and he's winding it down because it's no longer relevant for him to have it. And he has to help everyone understand this strategy. It's really incredible.
Well, Michael, I was telling you on data centers. I was like, hey, let's get a data center. We'll get a nice little co-location, and you're like, yeah, I've been thinking about that for a long time. Boy, am I glad you said no, because we'd be right now, out front with our little spinny sign, you're saying, data center space for rent. And there's no telling what kind of costume you'd make me wear because of that. So,
Right. So, what can you do? What does a budget mean? And what does a budget that has a long view on reducing technical debt look like? These are the words. These are the things that you have to do. You have to have priority. You have to be able to justify it. You have to be able to make it happen more and more efficient as time goes by. And then that last bullet is key. These are business decisions. These are not, the IT gods telling you what to do. We have to be a good IT provider, has to be flexible, has to adapt to your business situation, has to be able to adapt to what your goals are, but you at least need to have the menu, right? You need to have that, the priorities, why, and how it's going to help you, and then be flexible in the end is
it speaks for itself. I mean, you said it already.
So getting that strategic environment, that alignment, and having forward-looking meetings. This is what you and I spend most of our time talking with our clients about,
Yeah.
And it's our job to help do that. And a good IT provider is going to help do that. And if we are having strong strategic meetings with clients, they are agreeing to make decisions down the road. They're not, things that need to happen now. That's technical debt. That's getting out of under technical debt. And when we start having good conversations, that's what we're focusing in on: decision making, understanding the client, things like that.
I like that you said that. Good conversations, right? That's the key. An IT provider shouldn't come in and dictate your technology. An IT provider should come in first to listen. Listen to your industry, listen to your vision, listen to what you're trying to do in there, and then provide a solution that's going to maximize ROI, that's going to improve your decision making, help you accelerate growth, and enhance your agility. And that's really what you want an IT provider.
Yeah, and sometimes there are hard conversations that need to happen. We've had conversations where clients really, really are excited about something, and we have to tell them, you have to do this first. We have to get this. We know that this is a big problem, and if you can get this out of the way, then what you want to achieve will be so much smoother. We did a project a couple years ago with a large manufacturing organization, and we were new on board with them. And I just said, my gut is telling me that we need to solve this problem. And it was managing all of the printers that they had and coming up with a cloud solution that would centrally manage the drivers and the printers and reduce that amount of noise and frustration in their environment dramatically. And, they pushed back pretty hard. They were like, we've got to get this other thing going. This is really important. And I said, if you do it, you're just going to have two things on fire. Let's get this, let's get rid of it. Let's make this hard decision. Let's get it done. And, they came around, they're like, man, you're right. Having that out of the way, as simple as it sounded, it has empowered us to have so many more hours to focus on the good things that we want to do. And so, we do want to always listen and be adaptable, but on occasion, our clients have to, you can't skip leg day. You've got to get some of these technical debts out of the way. So let's talk about some 5 steps to smarter budgeting, and that story, deals with that, and kind of talks about that. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's your current posture. I mean, that's self-explanatory. And I'll tell you, let's think about this now. If you walk into your garage today, I bet you that your thoughts on the cleanliness of your garage are different from your neighbor's thoughts on the cleanliness of your garage. So that's where it really helps to have someone, get a true assessment of that posture. A prime example: we spend our days protecting, small and medium businesses, globally at this point. One thing that we like to do is work with third parties when it comes to penetration testing, for no other reason than, that removes that conflict. So get someone to look at your posture and make sure that you're making informed decisions on what that true posture might be. Yeah, my computer works. I turn it on. The keys are still on it. I push buttons and letters pop up. I understand that, but that computer is from 2006. It's time to upgrade it. I'm glad it still works. It's amazing. Let's get it submitted, to somewhere for an antique store. Those are things you got to go. Line IT investments in business goals, that comes into the strategy and prioritize for impact. Michael, you can speak to that, but to me, that's something that is probably one of the most important things, is really getting that ROI and the impact of the investment.
Yeah, and it's really just how we talk to our clients. It's if we're going in and we're saying your server's full, or this is what's happening, we're missing out on an opportunity to converse with you as to what's happening in your business, as to why you're growing, and what it is that's creating growth in your business. Because we can come up with solutions when we understand what maximizes impact for your company. Of course, we know technical systems and we can get capacity and requirements and all of that stuff. But if you work with someone and you want to have a roadmap that's more than just a speed bump after speed bump, or dumpster fire after dumpster fire, you have to shift that narrative on how we start talking with people. And that's that last one: is we want to know what your most profitable item is. We want to understand what you're trying to do in the next quarter or year or 3 years so that we can look at your IT and say, hey, if you're planning on moving in 18 months, let's get this project out of the way. It'll reduce the cost in your move and it'll reduce confusion before you move. And you'll come out of, in 18 months, not only in a new location, but with IT systems that are robust and cloud facing, and the move will happen with minimum downtime. And so the earlier you are talking to your IT provider about strategy and your business strategy, the easier it is. I mean, you want to talk to your fractional CFO and you want to talk to your, legal counsel. You want them to understand that roadmap, and IT is no different. If anything, we're the most important to give the most runway to, of all those trusted advisors that you've got.
Yeah, and I do want to make one point about building flexibility. You know, I like to think about the fact that, when you take an airline trip, they have enough gas to get you there and potentially back if they need to. Let's think about if you planned that gas only to get you there and you had to loop around for a little while, like happens, or if you had to take a detour because of weather and stuff like that. That is the reality of a technology environment. When you're thinking about making those estimations, that plus 10 to 15% bacon for anticipated cost these days is required, unequivocally required. So do keep that in mind.
Yeah. And so from what you expect from us, this is what we do. And our job is to plan, prioritize, and execute. And often when we bring a new client on board, they're really excited to make a lot of changes in their environment and, really are gung ho. And we have to tell them, hey, well, we have a backlog of work. We are planning our work with our clients out 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks. And so we want them to start to understand that you need to prioritize your work. We need to understand what's going to happen and what's going to get you value. And then we need to schedule it, make sure it's going to fit, and change the way that not only our relationships work with these clients, but oftentimes, as you know, we're changing how our clients are working with themselves and helping them to take a minute, sit down, strategize, think about a quarter, think about 2 quarters, think about what 2026 looks like. And we're helping people with that, not just on the IT perspective, but on the business side as well.
Yeah, and one of the oversights we see often is people process as part of this. Technology goes beyond just the nuts, the bolts, the chips, the computers, the power, all that other stuff. You have to take into account and allow us to take our time to do a full discovery. We love getting 18 months ahead of stuff, and we've run projects for 18, 24 months for no other reason than that was the best way to approach it. But I assure you, at the end of doing it that way, it relieves some of the pressure on the tail end. So once you get into the hypercare process of it, you're not dealing with something that is impacting your
Agreed. All right, so we did have one more survey, Becca. You want to let it out and we can see what people, what is dragging them down the most. So what do you think is holding your business back as far as technology goes? Yeah, reactive spending, hidden costs. So when we think of hidden costs, from our perspective, it is, time missed from billing. It is too many licenses, the wrong type of licenses.
integrations I didn't know about. They didn't tell me about when I bought this new platform.
Yeah, right. Like scope creep on an application buy, or just, applications that you're not using anymore. Downtime is a great hidden cost, which is easy to calculate. And so we do see that, and we are working with clients to try to identify those hidden costs. One of hidden cost, a tough one, is just culture, is just that kind of frustration. You're the pulse of your employees on how their technology behaves and what that experience is like. What's it like to get a new computer? Who's getting new computers and who's not? And who has big monitors? All of that kind of just noise and frustration is a hidden cost in IT that we work on. And then, yeah, reactive spending. It is, the, stereotypical IT thing that frustrates customers, is not knowing that this is a potential, or this is a roadmap, or this is a something that we need to get out of the way. And it has been our top core value at Amshot is to be honest, because the industry is just notorious for not saying, hey, that license is $2,000, or that's going to take me 70 hours to do. IT people are notorious for saying, that's going to take 5 hours. When if they just sat down and came up with a real plan, they would realize that, to do this right, it's going to take 60 hours, and they're going to need to spend, $4,000 in licensing. And I've known about this in the back of my mind for 18 months. And how do you change not only the culture of an industry to start working in a way where we tell you 18 months in advance, and we give you the full scope and how much it's going to cost, but having that stereotype kind of get washed clean. And so it is such a stereotype in our industry, and it's something that it takes a lot of work to fight it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned culture, Michael. One of the most debilitating things for you business owners out there, and some of you, executives and leaders, is when you bring in a new hire, and within their first couple of days, they're telling everybody else about how bad your technology is compared to where they were before. Or, oh my God, you guys have these computers. Oh my God, you guys are still using this. And there's people out there that have the wherewithal to ask you what systems you're running, and probably didn't take the job because they knew that was a legacy system and didn't want to be part of a transition to a new one because they just left the place they were because of what they had to go through. So do keep that in mind.
Yeah. All right. So let's open it up to questions and answers. Have we gotten any questions, Becca? Anybody have any comments or thoughts? We'd love to get people's feedback.
Looks like we don't have any questions yet, but I am monitoring. If anyone wants to go ahead and drop one in.
So we'll go with the next webinar is on December 4th. And so I'm bringing back Mandy from Enforcer, and we're going to be talking a lot about eating your vegetables for Copilot. So we're going to be talking about things like metadata for documents. We'll be talking about DLP, or data loss prevention. So vulnerable data, tracking it, keeping track of it, making sure it's safe. Things like social security numbers, credit card numbers, account numbers, routing numbers. And we'll be talking about how to get your environment Copilot.
Awesome. We just had a question come in, and it says, how can Amshot help me budget my cloud expense?
That's a great question. Well, Michael, I can take the first front of this. It goes back to what we talked about earlier about labeling said data, right? If you can determine your difference between production data, some cold data or storage data, non-production data, that data and the way you interact with it and use it can be charged differently compared to what's not being used. As we differentiate those things and access to said data, we really can optimize your spend in that reflect. So that's a key component of it, among other things. But from first thought, that's where my mind goes. What are your thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the misconception is that I see the most is that people think the cloud is cheap.
Yeah.
The cloud is not cheap.
It used to be, sort of.
Yeah. That was everybody's dream, right? That yeah, I remember those days. Well, it's getting cheap again now. The idea of keeping all of your data in a 365 tenant in a SharePoint site can get very expensive very quickly. And so it's a lot of business process, and it's setting retention policies, documenting those, and then implementing those that help you get rid of data or move it somewhere cheaper. That's the biggest cost for our clients right now, is who gets what license And then how do you keep your data, cultivated, curated, and max value, so that you're not, spiraling out on Microsoft.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, Drew, any other questions, Becca?
Nope, no other questions.
All right. Well, thank you again, Drew, for joining me here on the IT Factor. As always, it's great to have you on board, and I enjoy our back and forths. So
Awesome time. Thank you so much, sir. And I look forward to more of these.
yeah. See you, everybody.